Hello everyone, this is Ashley Tucker from My Favorite Things. I'm going to be making another Christmas card today, and I started this card by pulling out the Polar Opposites stamp set, and I picked out this really cute bear image from that set, and I stamped it with a Copic-friendly black ink onto some Neenah Classic Crust Solar White cardstock. I decided that I wanted a softer look with the coloring on this bear, and so I went with my colored pencils for the coloring. And the colored pencils that I prefer to use are the Prismacolor pencils. Now I do have all of the number codes for each of the different colored pencils that I used in case you want to color something like this using the exact same colors, and I will put those up in the corner so that you can see them. This first color that I'm using might be a little bit hard to see on camera. It might look like I'm not actually coloring anything at all right now, but this is a really, really light, warm gray color. And in real life, you can see it. It's just pretty hard on camera. It's especially difficult to see because of the technique that I use when I am using colored pencils. I always like to color very, very lightly. I don't press down very much at all. And the way that I build up darker colors is by adding layers and layers of color using very, very soft coloring. This is a good way to help your coloring look very smooth and avoid the streaky looking coloring that you can sometimes get with colored pencils. One of the big questions with colored pencils that I often get is how to prevent it from looking streaky. And pressing down super hard is going to make it look streaky. So you want to press down really lightly and build up your color with layers. And the other thing that I recommend for a really smooth looking coloring is to make sure that your pencil is moving in small circular motions on the paper instead of using lines of coloring. This will definitely help make the coloring look smoother. Of course, if you want your coloring to look really, really super smooth, almost as if it looks like marker, you can use Gamsol, which is a solution that you rub onto the colored pencil, and it spreads it out and it makes it look a lot more like marker. I personally don't use Gamsol very much because I kind of like the look of just the colored pencil. I think that the fuzziness and the kind of like soft look that it gives is part of kind of the charm. All right, so I'm just finishing up the coloring now, and then I'm going to take the coordinating die and I cut this out with my die machine, and then something pretty crazy is going to happen. Get ready. Are you ready? Watch. Here it comes. Nail polish change. Now, this is still me. It's just a week later because a lot of times I like to do my coloring in advance. And so I colored that bear about a week before I actually put it on a card. I had it set aside in my little stash of colored in images. And when I was ready to make the card, my nails were a different color. All right, now that we've gotten past that shocking turn of events, I am making a background for my card. Now, in my last video on the MFT channel, I talked about this background stamp and how I would be using it all the time. And guess what? I'm using it again. This is the Snowflake Flurry background, and I adore it. And I stamped it with Versamark ink onto a very dark green cardstock, and then I embossed it with a clear embossing powder. Next, I grabbed my Black Soot Distress Oxide ink and a blender brush, and I'm blending that around the very edge of the cardstock to darken up those edges. Next, I popped up this piece with some foam tape onto an A2 size piece of cardstock. Now, it doesn't look it because of the blending, but that cardstock is actually the same exact dark green color, and the blending on the edges of the other one just makes it pop. I popped up my cute little bear, and then I moved on to my sentiment. The sentiment that I chose comes from the Chill Holiday Stamp Set, and it says, "Sending you a holiday bear hug," which I thought went perfectly with this card. I embossed that with a white embossing powder onto some black cardstock, and then I popped up the strip underneath the bear, and I decided to add a little bit of sparkle to this by going over that sentiment with my Wink of Stella glitter brush. I wanted to darken up the edges of that stamped background. I wanted it to have a really dramatic look. So instead of grabbing the Distress Oxide ink again, this time I went for the VersaFine Onyx Black ink, which is a pigment ink, and it's going to give me a much deeper color. I used a piece of white scrap paper to block off the edge of the card so that I don't get any of that black ink onto the border where I don't want it. The last thing that I did is I grabbed my Copic multiliner and I colored in the eyes and the nose on the bear just because they were faded a little bit and I wanted them to be darker. And then this card is all done. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you really enjoyed today's card design and that it gave you some inspiration for your own Christmas cards. Have a wonderful day today, and I'll see you next time.